Hello, I'm Executive Chef Joseph Schutza, and welcome to our kitchen. Today I'd like to share with you a recipe of mine for a stuffed pork loin. I've done one previously, however, we're going to do some things different on this one. We have us a pork rack with the bone in. We're going to stuff with leek, fennel, and apple. We're then going to cook it sous vide and finish off with a bourbon and maple glaze. Well, this time I'd like to ask you if you've subscribed to the channel yet. If not, please subscribe and hit that notification bell and be up to date with all of our latest posts. For those of you who have already subscribed, thank you very much for your support, and I greatly appreciate it. Let's get cooking. Well, the first step of this process, as you probably know from my other videos, is that my pork always goes into a brine. So I have water in here now. If you happen to see the color is a little off, that's because my jar of Dijon mustard, I rinsed the jar out and threw the mustard from the jar in here as not to waste anything. So on with it. There we go. Now what I like to do is I always like to taste it just to see where I'm at. Now, it's going to be a little salty to begin with, but that's what it's for. It's a brine. This is not the end taste. Got to keep in mind we have a piece of meat that is about 6.5, 7 pounds going into this. So now we will add our pork loin or pork rack. And then I will add my parsley. I'm using the parsley for something else, so I just reserved the stems for this. Go ahead and put this to the refrigerator and brine this for minimum 2 hours. Now, while the pork rack is in the brine, let's go ahead and work on our stuffing. So I have a saute pan preheated over high heat, medium high heat. Add some oil, and let's go ahead and add our fennel. So we're gonna go on ahead and saute this for a good 5-6 minutes. Now that the fennel has slightly caramelized and also wilted up, let's go ahead and add our leek. And the reason I'm doing it in this order, I know normally you add the onion product first, but the leek will cook so much faster than the fennel. So that's why I led with fennel. Now, we're gonna continue cooking this for about 4 minutes or so. We're not looking to cook completely, we just want to soften or wilt the vegetables. Well, now that it wilted up pretty good, let's go ahead and season it with a little salt. And then I'm going to remove it to a sheet pan lined with a parchment paper to cool down. While the leek and fennel is cooling down, let's return our saute pan to the heat, add a little oil, and go ahead and sear the apples. We're not looking to cook them all the way, just a quick little blast into heat, and then remove them to a sheet pan with parchment to cool. Be careful to shake off the excess water. You don't want it to flame up on you. Now that we got a quick sear on it, let's go ahead and remove it and put it to the sheet pan with the parchment paper and continue searing the remaining apples that you need. Well, at this time, we removed the pork loin from the brine. We rinsed it with cold water and pat it dry with a tea towel and we have it on our tape workspace ready to carve. And if you can hear behind me the water sound, that's our water bath. If I have not mentioned it earlier, we will be preparing this sous vide. So now what I like to do is I lay my rack down and then follow where the rib bones go. Kind of come up under there, make yourself a nice little cut, the full length of it. Try to avoid sawing. If you saw like you're cutting wood, you will get yourself uneven cut and it'll like have jagged edges on it. It's just an aesthetic thing, but you know, it's got to look good too, right? This time, I like to season with a little salt. Be careful or be mindful of it because it just came out of a salt brine. Now let's go ahead and add some Dijon mustard. Spread it around evenly. Now I will season generously with fresh parsley. Now go ahead and add your fennel and leek. Again, nice even layer all the way across the entire surface. And I kind of stop short here because as you begin to roll it back into place, this piece is going to come in. So no need to go all the way to the end. Now I like to take my apples and go ahead and shingle these in place. So now let's go ahead and roll. Kind of get it nice and tight. And now at this point, we're going to go ahead and tie it up. Well, now we want to tie it up. There's a couple ways you can do this. One way is just cut yourself a piece of butcher's twine to length, slide it under, and go up in between the bones, and just simply tie yourself a knot. And there you have it. Another way that you can do it is you can tie this into a little noose knot. Go ahead and take it around and under and then back down through. Pull tight and you now have your little noose. So let's go ahead and stretch this out wide enough to go over your loin. Take it between the next bone. Go ahead and pull it tight. Now you take your string, lift it up vertically, take your opposite hand left upside down, and then make like a loop. And then take it under, and then bring it all the way down in between the next bone. Be careful, you may have to re-grip the loin a little bit to help make it nice and tight. Do not over tighten, but you also got to make certain that you're tight enough that the filling doesn't fall out. Again, repeat your process between the next bone. Now that we got to the end, this last piece, you see how the bone is hanging out off the end there? There's not really anything there. That's just the dynamic of the animal. So as we get here, we snug it up. Go ahead, pull it and flip the meat. Then what I like to do is I will take this string and I will run it back through here to help kind of tighten it. So I cut myself a lengthy piece to make certain I have enough. Now, let's take it up one and loop your string under. Again, snug it. So now that you've done that, let's flip it one more time. And then we will come to the little leftover we have there and go ahead and tie yourself a knot. Trim your excess. And there you have your pork rack. Now, one thing I will go into say, is tying the meat up or trussing it, for this particular recipe is not the most important thing in the world. We're just trying to maintain some sort of uniform shape because it's going into cryovac and being sous vide cooked. Now, if we were just going to a pan and searing it and then roasting it, it's a different story. This thing really needs to be firm because there's a lot of movement with the product and it can work its way loose. And because we're going under vacuum seal, this is going to lock in, and as the meat cooks, the proteins will bind together and give you that uniform shape. So now we will put this into a vacuum bag and we will set it to our desired time and temperature and go ahead and process it for cooking. Well, here we are. We removed the pork loin from the water bath and we're now ready to sear. Well, there you have my bone-in pork loin, stuffed with fennel, apples, and leek, also with a bourbon maple glaze. Now, feel free to not stuff it and just follow the same steps doing the glaze for a pork chop or pork loin, even pork tenderloin. However, I'm a big fan of stuffing the pork loins because I think it helps fill the dish. It looks good, and then plus it's going to add so many other layers of flavoring to your dish. Well, I hope you enjoyed today's demonstration. Hope you give it a shot. Let me have some feedback and let me know what you think about it. Thank you for joining us. Jöjj vad